This is George Dionne of the Rock is George podcast, and this is a KNAC.com exclusive interview with vocalist TREVOR PHIPPS of the metalcore act Unearth. If I knew absolutely nothing about Unearth, how would you describe the band's music to me?
It is a steady blend of heavy metal and hardcore, with all the different variations of each genre mixed in. So it's very heavily influenced by thrash metal from our youth, heavy hardcore from the mid to late 2000s, melodic Swedish melodic death metal, and just a bunch of different variations of even modern heavy music. So it's we kind of wear our influence on our sleeves, but we do that, and it creates a unique blend of sounds.
Absolutely. And it can certainly be heard on your latest album that came out on May 5th, The Wretched, The Ruinous, through Century Media. This is your 8th studio album. This is your pandemic album, from what I understand, not just written during that time, but also sort of writing from the standpoint of the world around us.
That's true. Yeah. We'll see more events like this. If we don't clean up our acts, the more our population grows, the more we destroy our planet, then Mother Nature is going to revolt against us, and that's what the whole record is about. It's a concept record that deals with subjects that are about today's effects of the climate crisis and what is possible to come in the future.
Is this a subject that Unearth has written about before?
On every record, I have at least one song about it. It's something that I've been passionate about since the early days of the band, and things are getting worse around the world, and so I felt the need to really step up my platform and talk more about it. A big reason for that, I really think that the late 2019, early 2020 wildfires in Australia that killed billions of animals was impactful, and just the wildfires around the world, and also the fact that I have 2 young kids where I don't want them to have to struggle with, environmental disasters as they get older. So if I can use my voice, for some sort of good, then hopefully things start to change and more people start to realize how serious the situation is, and that we can do a lot better.
When it comes to songwriting from Unearth, it's primarily you and guitarist Buz McGrath, correct?
Yes.
Do you usually come up with the lyrics first and then he works on the music, or is it a combination of both?
Buzz always provides the music first. Just like before, we had a different guitar player as well along with Buzz. They would submit songs. Ken Susi is his name. They would submit songs and with drum machines, and it was their structure. They give it to the band, and the band would then critique the structure. Once we all agreed on a structure, we sent it to the producer. The last 2 records has been WILL PUTNEY, and then he would maybe say, yeah, that's great, go with that, or he could give some suggestions on structure. Once the structure is finalized, that's when I put pen to paper for lyrics. But the whole time, once I hear the first note, I'm searching for the right vocal patterns, and those usually come pretty easily. But the words come last. I want to focus my time and energy on writing what the song is going to be, like the final product, because I'd hate to fall in love with a part lyrically, vocally, that is going to be cut from the song. So I just wait till it's a completed a tune first.
You described The Wretched and The Ruinous, The Wretched, The Ruinous, as a concept album. Is it difficult when you have to come out with advanced singles to promote the album to kind of pick and choose what should be out there, because it does kind of break away from the theme or the story?
The singles for this record kind of did paint the story a little bit, and that was somewhat intentional, but also the songs are some of the strongest ones. So the first single we had was just basically blaming the crisis on mankind. The second one was talking about how Mother Earth will turn against us and take us out if we don't do any better. So the start of that song is actually that wind sound you hear is actually the winds of Venus, and the winds on Venus are about 800 degrees Fahrenheit. And at one point, as far as our science shows us, Venus had life on it at one point, and they went through a natural, likely a natural, climate change over billions of years that turned it into a place that you can't have life on. But it was just kind of like a warning with that song, what a planet can do if it's not taken care of properly. Things can change quite quickly. The third single is Into the Abyss, and that was inspired by the movie Aniara. And that is about when mankind is forced to leave the planet because it's become too treacherous to live. And then the fourth single, Dawn of the Militant, is one view. I believe one way that mankind will perish almost entirely during this crisis if we don't do any better is nations of power that are attacking other countries for their natural resources. And if these two countries have nuclear weapons, then we're going to have an atom bomb problem, and it's going to take us out. So it does kind of paint the picture with a broad stroke, but it's those are 4 strong songs and records as well.
Going through this pandemic, it seems like we put sort of an issue like this on the back burner because we're too busy fighting with ourselves to figure out what's going on with the world around us. Yeah,
and that's been happening for a long time, and that's what the song "Theaters of War" is about. So the record ends with that, and it's me saying, "Hey, we're tribal by nature, and it's insane that we fight about relatively small things. Yes, they might seem very important to you and your core beliefs and what you think is right, but the planet we live is being destroyed because we can't get on the same page to fix this problem. All our other problems, every single one of them, no matter how big you think it is, does not matter if the planet turns against us. And so if we're going to fix these other things, let's focus on this as well. And it seems like we're not doing a good enough job for it. People just kind of disregard it and just blow it off. And we're fighting with each other over relatively small things.
You mentioned producer Will Putney. He produced your last album, Extinctions. Is there something he brings to the table that you trust him to come back with this album?
Oh, everything. He's an excellent producer and engineer, a great guy, but he knows our band inside and out. He's a student of music, of his craft, of engineering and producing, and he brings the best out of us. And even though he's not a vocalist, he's like a vocal coach for me when I'm in the studio, and he brings the best out of me. And I've had, I've worked on it on my own private time as well, but he brings the best out of me in the studio. And I really enjoy working with him.
This is your second album for Century Media. How did you end up signing with them for the last album?
So we, when we parted ways with Metal Blade, great label, we just wanted to try something different for our Watchers of Rule record in 2014. And the idea was, because we're a worldwide touring band, is that we signed with 4 different record labels. So we had one in North America, which is E1. We had Howling Bull in Japan. And then in Australia, we had 3 Wise Records. But in Europe, we got signed to Century Media. So out of those labels, Howling Bull did great. 3 Wise Records in Australia went out of business a month after the album came out because it's also tied to a festival that defunct. So they went bankrupt. E1 did a great job, but Century Media really did the best job. And so it was time for a new record. They said, "Hey, how about we get the worldwide albums?" And we're like, "Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You have it under one roof again." We tried the 4 different labels. It was a bit too difficult to keep up with, especially with one label going bankrupt. So Century Media has been a great label for us. They do a lot of active promoting, and there's really good people over there.
You have a new guitarist for this album, Peter Lehman. He replaces Ken Susi, who has been with the band since the beginning, I believe. How did you discover Peter?
So Peter's not actually on the record. Buz does all the guitars. Ken left the band in March of last year when the guitars were already recorded. And Buz had done all the songs. Ken had put in a couple of songs, but they're not on the record. They got recorded, but since we parted ways with them, we just kept those songs out of the equation. Peter filled in for Buz in 2005 we met Peter way back in '02. We were playing the Bay Area. I think it was the Pound in San Francisco, and he was in one of the opening bands called Clearing Autumn Skies, and they were great. We got their CD. We spun it nonstop in the van, and I was talking with the guitar player Peter, and he was the songwriter and guitar player, and he was really creative. He's excellent on stage, and there's something about him like this guy's great, you know. So Buz was going to leave the band in '05 because he had a union job. And so he said, you know, I have to leave the band. You know, he just doesn't want to, but you know, the job paid pretty well. And so we asked Peter to be the next guitar player in Unearth. Last minute, though, Buz decided he didn't want to leave the band. He was, you know, too passionate about the band. So we had to tell Peter, hey man, you know, sorry, you can't, you know, we're gonna have to pull back that invitation. But he did fill in for a tour in Japan, Australia back then, and he killed it. We stayed friends with him. When I used to have a record label called Ironclad Recordings that I owned and ran, and I signed his next band. It was called Apiary. They have a killer record I put out by them back in '06 or '07. But we stayed in touch over the years a bit, off and on. And then when we parted with Ken, Buz and I were like, you know, we talked about a couple of different guys, but then we just came and settled on, like, we have to ask Peter. He seems to make the most sense. He's a shredder. He's a really good person. He's very professional. So he's working out great.
You also have a returning drummer in Mike Justine. He played with you guys from 2002 to 2007. How did he end up back in the band?
So Ken and Nick left the band around the same time. And so same thing. Buz and I were talking about, you know, who can we get to replace Nick? And there's a million great drummers out there, but we just settled on the decision. Like, we have to ask Mike, because Mike was in the band. We let him go in '07. Back then, the band was, you know, we're in our 20s. We're partying way too hard. Things got a bit out of control, and you know, we fired him on tour for stuff that maybe in hindsight we probably should have, you know, fixed this internally instead of just firing the guy. It was a long, you know, a bunch of things happened over a period of a couple of years, but in hindsight, I wish that maybe we approached it differently, because his level of performance with us on stage is untouchable. He is part of our act. He's part of our personality on stage, and to have him back on stage with us is what this band needs.
With the departure of Ken and Nick, was it a mutual decision, or were you guys just butting heads and everybody wanted to move on?
There's a lot of layers to it. Main thing is we had a difference of opinion on the best path forward for the band, and there's a lot of stuff going on. I don't want to speak poorly of them, but there was definitely some stuff that, you know, didn't make any sense for us to move forward together. We did have a moment where we patched it up with Ken, and we just came to realize really quickly that it was time for us to part ways. And so we told him, like, look, we're just moving forward with Peter. So we had a great time with those guys in the band. They were excellent bandmates. We just reached a point in time where it's better for both parties to not work together.
Unearth is currently on their album release tour. You're talking to me right now from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and tomorrow on the 23rd is a hometown gig of sorts for you in Worcester, Massachusetts. It must feel good coming back home when you're touring.
Yeah. I get to go home. We're going to load in. I'm going to sprint home, see my kids, my dog. He's getting older. I know he's not doing too well, so it'll be good to be an emotional time to see the kids and just see the whole family, and, you know, wife, kids, and dog, and spend a couple hours there. Then we're off early the next morning to Quebec City. But it's nice to stop in after 3 weeks to see the family.
And the Worcester Palladium is sort of like the most prominent heavy metal venue, I'd say, in Massachusetts. I was there last night watching Halloween and Hammerfall, so I would imagine that Unearth does really well with the hometown crowd there.
That is our hometown venue for sure. We all grew up closer to Boston, but Worcester was the venue that we played, you know, I don't know, gotta be 40, 50 times right now, both upstairs and downstairs. We know those stages very well, and we were very excited to play a hometown gig.
So the first album that introduced me to your band was the Oncoming Storm in 2004, and that album is slowly approaching its 20th anniversary. It was your second studio album and your first for a major label, Metal Blade. What do you remember of kind of signing that deal with Metal Blade and putting the album together?
I remember clearly we're doing very well at the time. We were touring in support of our EP Endless. Came out in '02, but this is '03. I think it was March of '03, March or April, and we were doing a 2-week headliner to South by Southwest in Texas and Austin, and then the day after we're going to meet up with Shadows Falls tour. And we get to Austin, Texas. We play something called Stress Fest, which is the Derek Hess, the Artists Festival. And we headline the inside stage of an overpacked room. I think the room had a 700 cap because of the festival. People coming in and out during Southwest. The room had probably close to 1,000 people in it. It was definitely a fire hazard. It was an awesome show. It was one of the most, it was one of the best shows of our career up to that point. Top 10 easy. And Mike Faley from Metal Blade was there. And so right after the show, he came up and said, you guys are great. So, in so many words, and I said he wanted to sign us. So we started talking to them then, and we eventually settled on the deal. And then we hit the studio with Adam D about a year later, and we did that record. And I recall us knowing that the songs were really strong, and having a lot of high hopes for the album. And we had a lot of solid touring lined up for before the record's release and during it and even after it. So everything was kind of lined up for success, and it definitely changed us. It cemented us into a career band. That record did open a lot of doors for us and create a lot of opportunities.
Is Unearth the only music project that you work on, or do you have your hands in anything else?
Off and on, I'll jam with buddies from my previous bands. Other than that, I've got nothing. I play acoustic guitar just for myself. I've done a couple of gigs at my kids' preschools when they were younger. But that's just for fun for me, and also keep my voice strong to sing and play the acoustic.
Well, it sounds like you're doing great with Unearth. It's been 30 years or so at this juncture. You have the new album, The Wretched, The Ruinous, out now on Century Media. Sounds fantastic. Wish you the best on the road and the best with the new album.
Thank you, George. Really appreciate it.